And Dennis. Well, if you were here last week, we concluded a 9-week series. I'll tell you how many times I've completed a 9-week series in over 25 years of being a pastor. I've done that once, and I completed it last week. I've never done a... No. I was not saying that as a good thing. I was saying you're probably wanting some new content. And so today I have some new content about an ancient thing. How many of you here, we're a different church. About half of our church identifies as Catholic. The other half, various religions and different Protestant denominations. How many of you here grew up practicing something called Lent? L-E-N-T. Not lint, not the stuff that's on my jacket, but Lent. Lent is a historical practice that the church has done for thousands of years where we remember Jesus' time in the wilderness. It's a period of 40 days where he fasted in the wilderness. And what that's translated to over the years is that Lent is the period of 40 days where we give up something so that we might get closer to God and to one another. And today I would like us to look at this historic practice and see if perhaps there might be something we've forgotten over these long years of practicing it as a culture, as different faith communities, as different faiths. So in your mind this morning, I want to ask you to imagine something with me. Imagine a small coastal village in medieval Europe. Get that in your mind. Reach into Game of Thrones images or whatever you need to do to get that image in your mind. Winter is harsh, and spring is still a distant promise. The fishermen in this town have been struggling, and the wealthy in the region prefer meat. They want venison from the hunt. They want beef from their herds. And fish, to most people during this time, is seen as humble food. It's the food of the poor. And so Antonio is a fisherman in this town. He has a spouse. He has 5 children to house, clothe, and feed. His boat is weathered. His nets have been mended before and remended again. And each day brings with it for him the same worry. Is my family going to have enough to survive until summer comes? And then Lent arrives, and for 40 days, the church commands that all the faithful, from the lowliest servant to the wealthiest noble, abstain from meat on Fridays. And suddenly, when this season hits, the fish market all of a sudden explodes. The once quiet fish stalls become centers of commerce. Antonio and his fellow fishermen can't get to all the work they have to do. They're working tirelessly, frantically. But now their labor is bringing reward. Their children eat, their debts decrease, they are even able to save a little. And in the hills up beyond the village, the cattle farmers adjust their rhythms to this too. They've planned for this Lenten season as their fathers have taught them. What remains of their herds will grow fat on spring grass once Easter arrives. The church's calendar has for generations become their calendar too. A rhythm that allows for everyone to survive in their seasons of need. This is what Lent used to be about. It wasn't merely this individual spiritual practice that's just between us and God, but it was this entire system intentionally built to serve the vulnerable while reminding the privileged of their dependence on God too. The church hadn't stumbled on this by accident. They had woven it deliberately into the fabric of faith and practice. The rhythms of the church calendar aligned with the natural cycles of agriculture, creating a balance where both fishing and farming communities could thrive in their respective seasons. Isn't that cool to think about that? Maybe that's just me because I'm into Bible stuff, but I just think that is really amazing. When we look back into these ancient, crusty, cobwebby institutional decrees, and we start to think, wait, why did we ever stop doing it like that? Why did we change it? That sounds awesome. Rabindranath Tagore, who was a Nobel laureate, once wrote this: "We come nearest to the great when we are great in humility." We come nearest to the great when we are great in humility. And how are we humbled in this life? I'm so glad you asked. Here's the answer. We are humbled in this life by going through seasons of not getting everything we want, when we want, and how we want. Anybody ever been through that before? It humbles us. And in these seasons, sometimes we need to rely on other people. That is the work of greatness in us. Other times in these seasons, people in our lives are relying on us. This is also the work of greatness. This is what connects humans most closely to God at the end of the day, how we care for one another. Our passage for today reads, "Then Jesus told his disciples, 'If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me.'" At first glance, that passage is a downer. I can imagine Jesus saying those words at a party and all of the forks just hitting the ground. That's like a hard passage to read. It's a hard thing to hear. You're not going to hear this passage spoken of in a lot of churches because it feels impossible to live up to be honest. Take up my cross? Wait, I thought that's what Jesus did on Easter. He did it so I don't have to, right? Isn't that what we've been taught? Yes, of course, Jesus here isn't being literal. He's using hyperbole. God is not asking us to die, no, but God is asking us to live, and to live a little bit more sacrificially. Here's the thing. Jesus did not carry his cross for himself. It wasn't this act of self-improvement that he was going through. It was self-giving love that transformed the world. People are still talking about it today. And in his sacrifice, Jesus modeled for us what true self-denial looks like. Not a private spiritual practice, but rather a public act of redemptive love. And I wonder why we've forgotten that. We give up chocolate, we fast from social media, we adopt for 40 days the abomination that is decaf coffee, we drink light beer, whatever our thing is. But are we asking ourselves, when I do this one thing, is it just about me? Is it just about my own closeness to God, my own development, my own growth? Or does it also serve as a way to grow and help others around me? That's what Lent was historically. It wasn't everyone running to their private place to wrestle with God. It was people saying, how can I give up something so that everyone around me can have something? Have we transformed a season of sacrifice into a season of self? That's a hard question. And only you can answer it for yourself. Only I can answer it for myself. And my truth is, if I'm honest, yes, I have been very guilty of this. making the Lenten season more about my growth and less about the betterment of those around me. What is Lent really about? Lent is about listening and loving. Listening to the needs around us, hearing the struggles of our neighbors, paying attention to the ways our sacrificial love might become provision for them. That's what we've forgotten. Just this past week, someone that I know had a family member at NIH that was cut. Their department was just eliminated. Why? Was it because of their incompetence? Absolutely not. This person is amazingly qualified to do the work they do. No, it was cut because the executive branch of our government is trying to make money by taking it from the very people it exists to serve, promising all of us that if we will just deal with it and suffer for a season, that it's going to get better. And that, forgive me for saying it, but I just think that is the most asinine thing I've ever heard. Here's a thought. What if we all just struggled equally together instead? Yeah, struggle for me is different than struggle is for you. We struggle, each of us, in our own way. So why don't we just meet each other there? We have a robot rolling around on the dunes on Mars, taking soil samples and sending photos of them back to us. We can operate something on another planet. Certainly we can learn how to operate here on our own planet better. Certainly we're brilliant enough to figure out how to orchestrate a system where everyone has enough. And honestly, ladies and gentlemen, friends, family, siblings, if that's not true, what are we doing here? Why are we reading our Bibles? Why do we read other sacred texts? Because this is the solution, generation after generation, that they continue to echo forth. Their advice is never going to change. It's locked into history. It's printed on a page. The world works better when everyone has what they need. That's what these books teach us. That it's not just about our own condition. It's about the condition of our neighbor. Remember Antonio from the fishing boat story? Think about the modern day Antonios in our society. The single parent working 2 jobs to make ends meet. The elderly neighbor choosing between medicine or a meal. The immigrant family trying to build a new life in an America that now feels almost hostile. The homeless person not trying to take advantage, not trying to work the system, but just a fellow human being seeking dignity and safety. What if we went back to making Lent about things like that? Lent concludes next Thursday, and I want to continue to challenge us to be asking ourselves bigger questions this year. Not what should I give up, but who can I lift up? Not how will this fast, this deprivation make me more spiritual, but rather how will this make someone else more secure in their own life? Not what am I sacrificing, what am I giving up, but who am I serving? That makes it such a beautiful thing. It puts a reason behind it. Lent is all about listening and loving, listening deeply enough to hear the needs around us, and loving concretely enough to meet those needs. And in doing so, we are following the way of Jesus, where our own sacrifices become salvation for another. Let's pray.